Hello to all of my journalers, travelers, planners, and everyone in between. Thank you for tuning in on my channel to check out this video. So if you've ever wanted to live overseas, but you've been uncertain about a country to pick, or language barriers you might encounter, or what your social life might be like, I think this video might be for you because I'm going to be talking about my overall experience living in South Korea, and you may or may not be persuaded to go, but I think you will be persuaded. So here we go. So when I was in Korea, I was there for 3 years and I was teaching English to students. I was in 2 entirely different work environments. The first 2 years, I was in a public school in a rural town called Gongju, which is on the west coast of South Korea. And I was the only foreigner in the whole entire school. Sometimes the only foreigner I would see walking about in the city after work as well. When it came to my last year, I was on the west coast of South Korea in a private institution. And this institution was located along the outskirts of Daegu, which is Korea's 3rd or 4th largest city. When it comes to work environment, there's kind of like this unspoken rule that in public schools, every Wednesday you have to, with all the staff, go play like tennis, volleyball, whatever sport they're playing. And then you have to go out to eat with them every Wednesday. And sometimes instead of playing sports, maybe you might go hiking, and then there's a yearly trip where you might go away for the weekend all together. In private institutions, at least the one I was in, we didn't have that. If the staff wanted to get together and do something, it was up to the staff. You weren't forced to do anything. You weren't forced to pay into anything. And you weren't looked down upon if you decided not to go. With public school, they did have a way of outcasting you for rejecting them, so to speak. And so in a way, I was outcasted when it came to those kind of things in public schools because I refused to go. But when it came to private institution, that wasn't my issue. I don't know how it was for everyone else, but for me, that was like not my concern at all. When it comes to school life and you actually teaching, things get really interesting, especially when you have a language barrier and you are the only one in the classroom with all of these students who are looking at you because you're there to teach them, and then there's this obvious language barrier. So things are just going to be super interesting and you have to be super creative. So now with all of this in mind, when it comes to private institutions or private schools where the parents pay for their students to be there, and let's just say you happen to have a bad group in a class, your chances of getting respect are like slim to none. And I say this because the staff and the principal, whoever's in charge, they're going to prioritize the student because they equate to money to your getting respect in the classroom. And again, this isn't everyone's experience in private institutions or private schools, but it was mine. When it comes to public schools, on the other hand, for me in the rural town that I was in, I didn't have these issues at all. The kids got yoked up, slapped up, punched up, and I know it sounds messed up, but that's just the way things were. There was just this unwritten rule of like, if you step out of line more than once, it's okay for me to hit you, and your parents know this. And that's just how things went. And it's not to say that the kids were perfect in the public schools that I worked in, because they weren't. But with discipline comes more respect than if you don't have a discipline system. And so, when it came to things like let's say a student in my public school might say something that I had a feeling might be something bad, but I really didn't know. All I had to do was say that Korean teacher's name that I know, be slapping them up, and that would get them apologizing and get the class back in order and get things back in line. Now, when it comes to private institution, you don't have anything to fall back on. So that's one of the major differences for me. Now, the relationship between the students and the teachers is very interesting. And I say this because in the States, um, hmm, in the States, from what I remember, the students and the teachers aren't that close and compared to Korea. And here are some examples of what I mean. So in Korea, it's nothing for the students and the teachers to use the same bathroom. Where in the States, I clearly remember, and I'm pretty sure this is still a thing, there being a faculty bathroom and a bathroom for the students. In Korea, that's not, everyone just uses the same bathroom. Also, when it's lunchtime, I don't ever remember eating lunch with my teachers. And in South Korea, you're eating all together. This is public school we're speaking. In public school, you're sitting down at the lunch table, everybody all together, principal, vice principal, your teachers, everybody. You're sitting together and you're eating. That didn't happen. That doesn't happen in the States. I don't know how charter schools work, but in public schools, from what I remember, that wasn't a thing. The other thing is that the students know a lot more information about their teachers than students here in the States. So, for example, I remember when I first learned, well, when I learned any of my teachers' first name, it was like a big thing. Like, oh, wow, your name is Tiffany? I would have never thought that. Like, you know what I mean? But in Korea, like, they know their teacher's first name, and it's not a big thing at all. It's also not a big thing to know their phone numbers either. Often I would get students like ask me where I live or ask me for my phone number. And I thought it was really strange until I saw that they knew where all their teachers lived. And they had most of their teachers' phone numbers as well. So that dynamic is very interesting. When it comes to language barriers, this is interesting as well, and I say that because you really have to be you really have to learn how to utilize nonverbal communication. And you can't be anal for like details. Of course, there are certain things where you need to know everything that's said. Like it's important when it comes to health or whatever, your school, work, stuff like that. But other things, not knowing 100% what's happening is okay. So, for example, like if you go to a restaurant, mostly what I would do, I would either show a picture of what I wanted on my cell phone if I didn't have a picture and I didn't know the name and there wasn't English on the menu at all. I would just play Russian roulette and then point to anything on the menu, and whatever came out to me, I ate. But for the most part, you would just show your cell phone, and then remember, when it comes to food, since you're sitting right next to your students anyway, food is one of the things that you kind of will know, different food items. For everything else, your best bet is just not worrying about the fact that you don't know everything that's being said and just working with the bits and pieces. But other than that, language barriers in Korea, out of the 3 years that I was there, considering that I don't speak Korean, I really didn't find it challenging at all. Now on to the good stuff, social life. So if you're a loner like me, or if you like large groups of people to have fun in, that's fine because you will still like Korea. And this is what I mean. So if you know anything about Korean history, then you already know that the country rebuilt itself up pretty fast. And despite how fast it built itself up, um, it still manages to hold on to its culture. And I think that's really interesting despite being modernized so fast. And I think it holds on to its culture by having festivals and different activities and having each city known for something different. So, for example, when I lived in Gongju, they were known for chestnuts. I don't know why. I don't feel like I've seen more chestnuts in Gongju than I have in other cities, but that's just what it was. When it came to Daegu, which was where I lived on the outskirts of from my last year in Korea, Daegu was known for the Chicken and Beer Festival. And it was just an interesting way when I sit back to think about all of these activities and outdoor festivals, a good way to bring people in from different parts of Korea and to fuel the economy. Now, here are the top activities that I feel you should definitely do while you go to South Korea, or you should probably consider moving to South Korea just so you can do them. Number one, the Jindo Sea Partying Festival. It's exactly what you may think. The sea at Jindo Beach, it literally parts. It has something to do with the moon and the planets being aligned, something, something, but the water separates and it's amazing. So if you look at this picture, you'll see to the right of me, there's like this white mound, kind of like near my shoulder area, near the mountains. And you notice the gravel and the water is still pretty much part intact. Now look at this next picture. Look for that white mound. And you'll notice the water has separated. So you should definitely go to see all the coolness of that. There's the Boryong Mud Festival that happens in Boryong. It's like a big mud party. I enjoyed it. I've been there twice. There's a Jalgachi fish market. I think it's the largest and possibly the oldest fish market in Korea. The sizes of the seafood is just crazy. I mean, look at this shrimp right here. And I think the other thing for me that was really, really cool was the Lotus Lantern Festival that also happened in Busan. Um, you go during the daytime, you see all of the lanterns, and then toward the evening, everything just lights up and it's beautiful. Um, so I really hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed sharing with you all of this information. I hope you found it insightful, interesting, and I hope it may persuade you to see what Korea is about. Thank you for watching.